welcome to Samadi Bali for today's live event with Han Wan. And we have a very special topic today, which is Bulletproof Immune, Redemption after certain event. I put in certain, there's no certain, but I'm just curious, like, what are we talking about today, Han Wan?
Well, we're basically going to be talking about how to strengthen your immune system,
Mm-hmm.
not only from the perspective of herbs, but from the perspective of lifestyle and practices,
Mm-hmm.
and then we can bring in other things. And then the other topic that I would like to share some light on is how to remediate your a system that experiencing side effects, or even if you don't physically experiencing side effects, kind of like some tips on what to look for and what tests to do to find out what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But before we step into all of that, um, we can take a couple minutes to sit back and relax and close your eyes, or take a couple deep breaths. Sit in a way that you feel comfortable and open and receptive. Breathe all the way down to your abdomen, and then expand your breath into your chest. Exhale out through your mouth, and then do this a couple more times, and just allow the sound to move and carry you to wherever it needs to go. Okay.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
You want to start with?
Well, I was just reading a little bit about the information you're sharing today, and I read about this secret sauce and how it's gonna help a lot of people after they receive like vaccination or certain things. Like sometimes, with the world, with the academia, it's like the world is at a very uncertain place, and
Yeah.
many people's health are not just like physical health, but mental health and emotional health are all challenged. I actually had a friend who just flew into Bali a couple of weeks ago, and in order to travel to see his family, he had to get the shots. And actually, after he returned to Bali, he's been having some physical issues, like high hypertension
Mm-hmm.
and exhaustion,
Yeah.
and just bunch of like strange physical reactions.
Yeah.
And so I have been tuned into a lot of information about, because I want to travel as well. I haven't been back home for years, but I'm really afraid of getting the shots. And if I
Rightfully so.
did have to get the shots at one point, what am I gonna do after? How can I help my body to resist the whatever side effect I've read online and heard from certain circle? So I'm just curious,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
if you could open that up.
Well, so I would like to open up this talk by just saying that I'm not really like a big expert on any of these topics,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Other than my interest in health, interest in the well-being of humanity in general,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm rooting for humans to win, to move forward, and to do a lot of things that are positive that are not so, in a way, so possible.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm in no way trying to instill fear in people and all of these things,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because whether we fear it or not, whatever it is already exists in our reality. It's just a matter of will we own it up to ourselves to step up and then be educated about the process,
Mm-hmm.
and in a way, the idea of taking responsibility, and that's very important. Because for a long, long time, we defer our health.
Mm-hmm.
We work and then we go for the career and all the other external things to make, you know, everything in life, there's always like a trade.
Mm-hmm.
We trade our life force, we trade our time. We have to compromise something
Yeah.
in order to get something. Right? So now, these things that are happening on our planet right now has been ongoing for a long, long, long time. You can say decades or even centuries. So now it just happened to be getting up into the surface for everyone to see.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, we don't really have a choice of not seeing it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that obvious,
Yeah.
right? So I'm just here sharing some of my research, observation, and then to contribute my part in a way, by bringing in some of the possible remedies, right? Because our idea behind Ming Herbs and Happy Tea has always been like natural, herbal, no chemical extracts and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But then there are certain things that herbalism is different from supplementation when you have the proper type of supplementation that one needs at this moment.
Mm.
So, in a way to have this lined up, some of them anyway, it's a little bit of a compromise of what we initially set out to do, right? So, I just want to make that clear,
Mm-hmm.
and also we have a link that is probably streaming right now under the video,
Yeah,
okay,
the
where you
description.
can maybe afterwards or now, if you're interested, to look at the reports and interviews and research from some pretty well-known doctors and researchers, and just to find out what they found out.
Mm-hmm.
This whole idea about blood clots and all these things kind of came out. Tour like at the beginning of 2020. Although it's not yet so visible because from my understanding of it, it takes certain amount of months for many people, to have this jab have an effect on the system.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also a percentage of people who get hit pretty much instantly and get hit very hard.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at the various system in the U.S. or the European recording, of the death and the adverse reactions, they're quite high. So but I feel like what's more important now, for people who haven't gotten it or people who have gotten it, it's still in a way like the same process, of building your immune system, right? So like an overall kind of a game plan, of building an immune system is pretty much like connected to the idea of getting healthy,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So wherever you're at, in your stage of health, there's always room to work on. So this is like my premises to do things. So, I don't get, so I always explore new things, right? I do this and I do that, and sometimes I don't do something for a while. Like, I stopped going to the gym for about 9 or 10 years, and then I went back to it. And then I loved it. I used to love it all the time, many years ago. And then for some reason, it just slipped my mind of like, oh, going back to gym, how simple is that? But then it transformed a lot of things. It's not just about, building muscles and all that stuff, but then it just transformed other aspect of it. So it basically like eating healthy. That is actually, can be a talk on its own.
Yeah.
Or two, right? Because everybody have an idea of what eating healthy is. So for the human system, I mean, you basically, if you have to sum it up in a few sentences, which I'm going to do here, it's like you need a certain amount of good protein, and then you need a certain amount of good fats. So the good fat is the omega-3, mainly, because the seed oil and things like that actually is not so healthy for the myelin sheath of your nervous system. So it's the fats, the omega-3, the vegetable and seed oil is more like toward the omega-6, right? So the omega-3 is a thing that shield your body, because our nervous system is actually quite fragile. If you look around, I'm not sure how many of you are into psychics and all this stuff, so if you look at in the psychic world, most of them are women, first of all.
Yes.
And second of all, most of them are, overweight.
I have a psychic healer. Yes, we talked about after our session. She actually spoke to me about like weight loss. Yeah, that's funny. Okay.
Well, but the thing is that when people work in that field, kind of like when you meditate, but your nervous system get hit a lot, by all sorts of energy that you are stepping into, right?
Yeah.
So there's a massive amount of energy around us.
Right.
So it's just a matter of how open this field is, right? So like our intuition, our sense of higher self and everything, it's connected to the higher aspect of ourself. So in order to connect to that, we have to open up our nervous system in a way. So our nervous system, you take the load of the hit, from the energy that come toward us, right?
Yeah.
And that's where, like, if you imagine, a successful psychic sitting there for 8-7 hours a day, to channeling and reading these things. I mean, the nervous system is fried.
So I have a question. It's really fascinating. First of all, I understand the healthy fat bits, right? But why women? You said women and a little bit overweight. So just curious.
Well, because women have a tendency to be a lot more openly intuitive in general.
Okay.
I'm not saying men are not like that. But if you look at a lot of the good psychics, they're also like very heavy set.
Yeah.
It kind of like it's almost like a self-protective mode, right? So the nervous system is very crucial. When your nervous system is weak, then you have emotionally you're more fragile.
Yes.
Right, like the weepy and drama and all that stuff, right? And then you just feel like you cannot hold it together.
It reminds me of what you're saying. Reminds me of my friends in Ubud, who are very much into vegan raw style. Like very thin, very
fragile,
good yogi, but emotionally very fragile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so that makes the emotional body and the mental body unstable.
Right.
Right. So the fat element to it, it's actually. Ubud is naturally not a good place to be vegan, and skinny. But then it just turned out that way, right? Because the energy of Ubud, like, last weekend I spent 3 nights in Ahmed, and the energy is so clear. I went up there. I basically slept the whole time, right? I was just like, I crashed down. I could not sleep like that in Ubud because the energy is like thick and churny, you know what I mean? So up there, I was just like passing out the whole time.
Okay.
And then when I came back to Ubud, you know, even when I have the afternoon to rest, I lay down for half an hour, like my nervous system gets up, and I start to move about and do things.
Yeah.
So the nervous system, you really have to take care of protecting it. So one thing about that is just,
Okay.
you know, so well, this is a little bit of a side story, right? Because if we just talk about all this stuff, it's pretty boring. But it's quite straightforward also. And then I think everyone kind of know at some level, whether intellectually or intuitively, you know what you need, right? So, you know, I have a friend in India. He's Austrian, right? And so he lives in Orville for like about almost 40 years by now. So he had another friend who's an Indian, you know, and this man is super serious about meditation. You know, I would say like a more truer yogi will like can earn the title of it. Well, this is how they do it in India, right? You just don't carry a yoga mat around and call yourself a yogi. You know, they'll look at you funny. But, you know, so he was telling me the story that one time he went to visit him, you know, and this man was just sitting there. He's radiating. So he came to him as a friend, but at the same time, the man was exuding so much energy that he felt like he wanted to bow down and kiss his feet, you know?
Right.
So they were sitting there and talking, and his Indian friend actually got up, went to the kitchen, and he took like a liter of ghee and he drank the whole thing.
A liter of
A
ghee.
liter of ghee. Yeah.
That's a lot of fat.
Yeah, so my friend was like amazed at looking at him. Like, wow, that's a lot of ghee. You can go down. And so he was saying that, yeah, because my system had too much fire from the energy.
Oh,
So
wow.
so the ghee is like, you know, a fire extinguisher.
Yeah.
You know, like mucus. You know, it kind of cool everything down, so he can actually be more grounded and functional.
Right. So after ceremonies, would you recommend people to take ghee or similar things to ghee after certain meditation or
Well,
ceremonies or you know of such?
Well, I feel like it's, you know, in the regular diet in general, you just have to incorporate a certain amount of good fat in it, right? Whether you drink raw goat milk or butter or cream or whatever. You know, fat is an amazing nerve healer.
Right.
You know, I used to have a friend, you know, she was in an accident and jammed her neck. It was so hard that she was on painkiller forever.
Right.
Right, so I took her to my, to one of my teachers who's a naturopath. And, you know, in a, kind of like a cocktail in a way, a fat cocktail, he asked her to drink this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So it's basically like egg yolk, milk cream, cream of coconut, and raw honey. And you blend it in and you drink it. The first time I drank it, like chi would flow in my body.
Really?
This is so crazy. So, you know, so she drank it for about 2 weeks and her pain went away.
That's
like the
amazing.
nerves start to
Wow.
heal from the fat. You know, so, okay, so fat is important.
Okay.
And then you got to have enough proteins, right?
So
Especially,
can you articulate on what type of fat?
well, just like, well, unfortunately, most of the omega-3 falls into the more like the animal kind of category, right? Whether it's fish oil or the milk or the butter or the cream or cheese and things like that.
Okay.
You know, even like, you know, animal fat, right? So you look at most of the old cultures, you know, I mean, I cannot imagine somebody having a smoothie in the morning and go out into the rice field, you know, work half a morning with all that sun and heat, bending down, getting up without fainting in the field. You know, like these old farmers, they get up and they eat the real breakfast. Like farmers everywhere in the world, right? You go to the U.S., I mean, they have egg and bacon and sausage for a reason. You know, because when you really have to work, not only farmers, but people who do hard labor in general.
Yeah.
And then, nowadays we have the luxury of not working hard as much,
Mm-hmm.
so we kind of can modify our diet at some level according to our needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, the fats and the protein. You know, people don't think about muscles. You know, you think about, well, people only relate to muscles as a sense of beauty, right?
Mhm.
You got these beautiful lean muscles,
And strength.
what have you, and strength. But strength comes second.
Okay.
You know, mostly like the look. You know, but what you have to understand is that when a physical body gets older,
Mm-hmm.
the hormonal system is going to drop. You know, and then one's ability to build up muscle mass
Mm-hmm.
is much harder.
Yeah.
You know, and then what happened to like my mom? You know, she became a vegetarian when she was 65, and she refused to eat anything other than like her
Tofu and
soy protein,
yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I mean, she basically like she have no muscle strength to drag around her bones.
Uh-huh.
You know, you have to think about that, right?
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
we're basically
Then your bone is not supported.
well, the bones need the muscles and tendons to hold it up like
Yeah.
a tent.
Exactly.
Like in the old days where you had a pole and then you tie the ropes
Mhm,
around
mhm.
so the pole can stand up,
Yeah.
right? So our bone skeletal structure
Yeah.
and the musculature has that effect.
Mhm.
So you see a lot of people, even like a lot of the young ones that don't eat enough protein, you know, they just don't have the muscle mass to move. And then, and what happened is that you lose more of the muscle mass when you don't eat adequate enough of nutrients.
Mhm.
So your body actually goes into this state of cannibalism, right? So you have like flabby, you still have some appearance of an arm, appearance of a leg, but it's all flap.
Uh-huh.
And then so it doesn't carry the bone structure. And then when you have an injury, you know, where you can go into the state of pain, you know, it's very hard to reverse, you know, until you do something about the nutritional aspect of it and rebuild your body,
Mhm. Okay.
right? So these fundamental, you know, basic things are very important.
Mhm.
You know, so it's, you know, an adequate amount of exercise, whether, you know, I would say do a combination of yoga and qigong and strength training
Mhm.
type of a thing, right? To kind of give it a more, you know,
So
balanced
in
thing.
terms of movement, those are like, you know, because that the qigong works on the qi,
Yeah.
and then yoga flexibility, strength, mobility, stability, and then with the muscle strengthening, you know, you have more, just like more muscle mass. I think they sort of like help each other to, you know, like if you do gym, it also helps you with yoga. If you do
Sure.
yoga, it also helps
Sure,
with the
that the
qigong,
strengthening.
you know.
Yeah, but besides these kind of physical things, you know, what they do is that it produces a lot of hormones. Like when you lift weights
Mhm.
or like some kind of a weight resistance,
Yeah.
you know, your body will release a class of hormone that you don't get from other exercises,
Okay, I'm inspired now
right?
to go back to the gym.
Well, yeah, I mean, I have never talked about this until I started the gym again. I thought, wow, I missed out on so many years
Okay.
of not.
Yogis, when they look at the people who go to the gym and go like, oh, gym goers, you know, that kind of thing. Little snobbish. So yeah,
Yeah.
but I hear you, yeah.
Well, but a part of it is you know, it's a misunderstanding,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's just like the spiritual path nowadays. You know, in the old days, you have to join a monastery or something to learn something useful. Maybe if you're lucky,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or you can walk into a cave and try to meditate for 3 decades
Yeah.
and see what happens, type of a thing, right? You know, but now, like, you know, knowledge and information is available. So if you have good karma, you will come upon good knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
and then if you have even better karma, you know, you will run into a good teacher
Yeah.
who can kind of get you on the path. But then you still have to walk it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a good teacher can just help you and lead you along the way, but most of the walking you have to do.
Mm.
You know, so there's no avoiding that process
Okay.
in a way. So all of these things, like as basic as they sound, helps a lot, in building the immune system.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, knowing is quite different from actually walking it, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, like Zen always said, practice is 90% of the journey,
Yeah.
right? But then nowadays we have more of the mental type who's sitting there dreaming about the koans and about this and that philosophy. All of that stuff is nice. It may serve as a motivation. But then if you just look at the books and then you don't do the actual practice, it's useless. It's a waste of time.
Yeah.
So for the immune system, like, if you look into something even more abstract, right? There's something that you can do without another person. I would say create some kind of a practice, every day, and then stick to it. Whatever you love to do. You get up in the morning, turn on some music and dance and just be in that kind of like a fluid state. Because human beings are only we came with one emotion, which is love.
Yeah.
Love is a force of expansion. You rarely see a baby grumpy, unless the baby poop on his pants or had like a lot of trauma coming in. Like a normal baby born is very happy and very aligned in general.
Yeah.
Right? So everything else after is learned responses.
Okay.
Even how we smile, how we make eye contact, how we do everything, it's just learned responses.
Right.
It's kind of like an agreement that, well, this means happy and that means sad.
Okay.
So it doesn't have anything to do with reality per se, right? So all of these things has to be like the foundation, or like, sunning, right? Sunning is like the vitamin D3,
Yeah.
right? So like you expose yourself to the sun. I mean, I try to sun nearly every morning as I can, but now it's very difficult because the sun is just not available. So sometime I will sun in the afternoon. If I can sun in the morning, I will sun in the morning. Or you can learn to sun gazing.
Yeah.
That's also
These
a possibility.
are beautiful, beautiful practices. It's
Yes.
supposed to be really good to clear the mind, and also even good for the vision. Is one of the Ayurvedic practices.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So basically, we're going back to basics, right? All of these things, and then try to reduce or eliminate stress as much as possible. So fundamental things we have to kind of like, maybe not today, maybe not next week, maybe not next month or next year, but eventually if we incorporating in the pieces and then making it a priority. So with the normal kind of a human situation is that we just do whatever we do, and then we see the body as a contraption. We throw in whatever we throw in, whether with drink or food or drugs and whatever, and then expect it to work. And then at some point, when the body cannot adapt, well, see, the thing with the human body is that whatever that you put into your body that is not nourishing it is toxic. So if it's toxic, then your body actually has to use its inner resources. It actually pull minerals and things out of your tissues and bones and all that stuff to neutralize it, whatever toxic in the body, right? So, and then, okay, I lost my chain of thought there, but so it's important to create like that kind of a balance, whereas like thinking about food is really critical to also think about what should I eat to make me feel better. Not everybody eats, not the fad of the moment, and not this diet that's people say that is good for everyone. There's no one diet that's good for everyone.
I mean, plant-based diet not right now is really like, popular. It's being endorsed by many celebrities and many yogis. And I was on like pure plant-based diet for quite a few years. It really helped me as well. Like took care of my physical inflammation. I even went from infertile to fertile,
Yeah.
you know, and have 2 beautiful kids. Nowadays, I'm becoming more and more of a flexitarian.
Mm-hmm.
So still 80% of plant-based, but 20% I just go with, you know, like either family gathering or go with my own feeling of my body. Like what does my body want? I just feed my body that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, eating, you know, and what the body needs is seasonal, right? For most of the people that walked out of a kind of like a modern kind of a lifestyle, right? You know, if you live in the U.S. or Europe, most of the food that you find is just industrial,
Yeah.
chemical food.
Yeah.
So you basically think you're eating food, but then you're bringing in a lot of toxicity into the body, and then that will, you know, overload your liver, overload your lymphatic system and your kidneys, and you know, even like your fat storage, holding on to toxicities because your body has to store it somewhere.
Right.
So a certain period of time being vegan and vegetarian will work in your favor as a way of detoxing the
Cleansing.
body,
Yeah.
right? So there's like the human system, like they're like 2 systems that if you use them properly, it can be very helpful. One is to use food like the vegan diet and a vegetarian diet for detoxing,
Yeah.
and then the other thing is to, you know, like with the fat and the animal protein and things like that are very good for building.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like in Chinese medicine, they would never take a frail person and then put them on a fast.
No way.
You know, so
No.
so like because a system that is already deficient,
Yeah.
you know, when you stress it some more by putting it in, well, what happened when you're fasting is that your body will start to break down faster than it rebuilds, right? But that's the goal that you want. You know, if you're coming in like overloaded with toxicity,
Yeah.
you know, you want to give your liver a break, and you
Right.
want the weak cells to die,
Yeah.
you know, so that it can be released from your system, so that your body can build new healthier cells, and it goes on for as long as it needs to go on, you know, for many people.
Yeah.
And then after a certain period, like I actually have a lot of clients who are vegans or vegetarians who are just not in a good state anymore, and then they came to see me, is like wondering why, and then, you know,
Yeah.
so anyway, so there are alternatives. So if you really want to stick to a vegan and vegetarian diet nowadays, with like the quality of our food being not so good, you have to be like super disciplined. You know, I mean, you know, it's just a reality of things, right? So we all can choose, like, and then for some people, doing something can, you know, bring them good health, and maybe that good health will last for some years, to the point that, you know, it won't last anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's all about like being in the present moment and really see how's the season, like how's your own physical state is,
Yeah.
right? Like what does your body need now today, instead of like what worked like last year or 3 years ago, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I actually know a couple of people, they're a little bit older, like in their 60s, that have been vegetarian for like 30 some years, and they have arrived to a point that, like, you know, they have lost so much muscle mass that they cannot, you know, they cannot continue the diet, so they change over, and then to slowly to rebuild the system.
I feel like what you're sharing it feels familiar, you know, it feels like that's the right path. When I say right, it's not like right or wrong, but it feels natural, like listen to our own body and eat what the body actually needs, instead of what the mind instructs us to eat for
Sure.
certain, you know, purposes.
Sure.
Yeah.
What within the human life, there's always many cycles.
Mm-hmm.
Cycles within the year, within the seasons,
Mm-hmm.
and then even like the cycles within our lifetime,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just like my mom, 65, she's preparing for death. You know, it's just like a very old Chinese and Buddhist way of thinking,
Mhm.
right? She's what that is like one of the biggest human challenges. You know, this idea of death.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so at 65, you know, she turned more to Buddhism, and she spent like a good chunk of her morning chanting and doing whatever that she feel like she needed to do.
Yeah.
And then she prepared her dress for the funeral, and now she's like 90, and she's still like waiting for that moment, you know.
Oh my God.
So
Sure, she spent decades
Yeah.
waiting.
yeah, but I can see that like through her change in her practice,
Mm.
her being also became softer,
Yeah.
and it's a little bit more harmonious.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So
More detachment too.
yeah, so if it's like help her to grow as a person, well, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, more power to her.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the immune system is a lot of things, right?
Mm.
So then, okay, now you step into the world of herbs.
Yeah.
So
Food, exercise, now the herbs. to
Yeah, so-
support.
the herbs are just like, you know, these kind of extra power that
Mhm.
you bring onto your system,
Mm-hmm.
where food and exercise and all of that stuff, you know, can bring you to a certain level.
Mm-hmm.
And then I feel like herb can, you know, bring us into a higher level
Yeah.
of functioning and,
Yeah. I feel
and
like
strength.
you mentioned food is either toxic or it's nourishing your body, and there's another type of food which is more in the herb category. I feel like
Mhm.
they're the super duper you know, the superfood or the super
Yeah.
support that can really help us to heal and to step it on a very high state of like wellness.
Yeah, it's, well, the energy in the herbs like a lot more refined
Mm.
and in a sense a lot more potent in many
Mm.
ways, right? So,
Mhm.
you know, I don't know if you know, people have heard of this substance called shilajit. You know, like in the very, very old days, you know, it was consumed by all the yogis in India.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they would go up in the mountain in about springtime,
Mm-hmm.
and then since most of them are hungry all the time because they don't have access to food,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because most people think that, oh man, the spiritual path is so sexy, you got to live in the mountain and all that stuff. But the one thing that you have to consider is that up in the mountains there's no food.
No
So-
supermarket.
There's no supermarket for you to go into, you know, or even like very few humans where you
Mhm.
can, you know, have a begging bowl to get food from.
Yeah.
So some of these guys, you know, ate this kind of like a dirt that oozes out of the Himalayas
Mm-hmm.
because, it started out. I mean, you know, inspiration and hunger can do a lot of things, right? So then they found that this substance nourished the body, give them more energy, and all that stuff. So much later on, it was recorded in the lores. And then now, you know, common people go into, you know, harvesting shilajit or buying it from some, you know, from some source and taking it.
Mm.
So like shilajit is like about 70% fulvic acid,
Mm-hmm.
and then it is complete with like micronutrients,
Mhm.
like a complete set of everything.
Wow.
So it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the last time I was in Nepal, you know, our guide had these. He also deal with some herbs and shilajit, and he had these rocks, and then you just drop them in the water, and a couple days later, the shilajit will separate from the rocks, and then you drink it. Not so easy to drink, you know. It smells terrible. So, but then it's much easier to have them in the extracted
Mm-hmm.
format,
Mm-hmm.
or have them in the burned, like the ash.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you can get the full spectrum of the mineral without all the,
Yeah.
you know, flavoring. But anyway, that's just one of the substance, right? So I'm just trying to say that some of these herbal things is beyond high potency, right? So, like Shilajit, and then the thing now that is quite popular with the alternative crowd to build your immune system is chaga.
Right. Yes.
You know, chaga is considered the mushroom of immortality.
That's very sexy.
Yeah. Well, you know, a lot of the cultures use it to cure cancer. So, and what you do is like some of the stories and folklore, even like in North America, some of the old tribes and in Russia, they would take a chunk of it. Chaga is very hard. You can basically boil the same pulp 4 or 5 times and you can still get a very strong tea out of it. It's amazing. I mean, like for like a bag, it'll last you a long time because what I do is that I boil, you know, I boil the one thing 3 or 4 times and then I don't throw the old pulp away. I just add more to it and then I keep boiling. You know, so chaga is antiviral, and what is one of the reasons why it's so important nowadays is when we get infected with COVID or whatever virus, they come into our body, and what they try to do is that wherever there's a weakness at the cellular level, the protein or the COVID hijack our cell to reproduce. So chaga actually, you know, will stop that process from happening in general, right? So you have like this one thing. It's an amazing preventative. So my thing with it is like I would have chaga tea at least once or twice a day, but because I have them in the raw form and the extract form and have them in a tincture form.
So in your, you know, where we sell in Samadi market, Samadi supermarket, we also sell that coffee.
Yes.
Also, there's chaga inside.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay. So we have like a few products that we made out of our chaga and reishi, right? So our, you know, our herbal coffee has chicory, reishi, and chaga. So it's actually an amazing drink. And then we have the raw chaga that is harvested in a very pristine part of Russia. You know, Russia is a huge country, right? So kind of like there's certain part of Russia that very few people actually step on. You know, like they're bare spaces where no humans have gone to before. You know, so we have them in a raw form. And then we also have the chaga extract, because I've been following all the things that are happening since like late 2019. So I heard it back then that chaga can help with these things. So since then I have them in stock.
Okay.
You know, and the price of it actually, like at the wholesale market, have gone up like 3 times since.
Wow. Okay.
You know, so okay, so as a preventative, you know, I would say like chaga, vitamin D3, and then vitamin C. Well, vitamin C we have like a natural C, and then if you want to have more like the ascorbic acid type, it's much better to get the liposomal. It means that it's been processed in oil. So for the liposomal, its absorption rate is about 20% or so.
Okay.
You know, if you take the ascorbic acid by itself, like the powder, the absorption rate is really low. So people have to take like, you know, if you want your body to absorb 1 gram, you probably need to take about 5 or 6 grams of it a day.
Okay.
Right. So, and then like have something like zinc, you know, which we don't have in a direct type of a supplement, but then we have more of the pearl mineral. So So the pearl mineral, like in old China, like the empresses and how the concubines would use it for beauty, right?
For the
Well, that's-
skin, to take it.
Yeah, but that's the saying about the pearl skin, like the
Very
skin
smooth.
look like pearl.
Yeah.
So they actually, dissolve the pearl and drink it, and it's so high in mineral. It's 80% in calcium,
Mm-hmm.
and then it has a